Hello there kids, today we are going to talk about weather disturbances. Okay, so weather disturbances. Ano nga bang weather disturbances? Okay. So Earth is surrounded by a thin blanket of air called the atmosphere. Of course, so most likely alam nyo na to. No? This is basically referred to as a thin blanket of air called the atmosphere. And a condition of the atmosphere at a given place and time is called weather. The atmosphere is composed of 5 main layers which are as follows. Okay, so kung mapapansin ninyo, meron tayong troposphere, the lowest, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, and the exosphere. Okay. So kung makikita ninyo sa troposphere, no, basically it is by observing the diagram, you can see that there are clouds, hot air balloon, and mga commercial planes natin. So basically, this is the area where we can find weather, where the limit of commercial flights are, and hot air balloons. At pagdating naman sa stratosphere, this is where yung mga more powerful jet planes can travel. Okay. Mesosphere, going all throughout the thermosphere, where you can find the satellite, and the exosphere. Okay. Elements of weather. Air temperature describes how warm or cold the air is around us. So, depende kasi yan, no? This refers to how the heat of the sun affects the environment natin, because even if we live in different places, the temperature or the air temperature around us is different. Just like in this case, kung mapapansin niyo, in this area, it is given that the air temperature are both the same at 20 degrees Celsius or 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. So if you'll be able to notice that the only difference between the two situation is that there's a presence of clouds here. No, there's a presence of cloud in this case. So without directly being hit by the sun's rays or the radiant heat, we can observe that the illustration tells us that this person here feels cold compared to this person here who feels warm. So given the fact that even though you have the same air temperature, the temperature that you feel is somehow different. Okay? So air temperature only refers to the temperature of air around us, not how we feel, yung actual temperature na experience natin. Okay? Atmospheric pressure describes the push and pull of air molecules on the ground. Okay, because the less pressure actually pag nasa taas, the air becomes thinner kasi if you reach the yung pinakamataas na part, like yung sa illustration kanina, which is the exosphere. So thin air, less oxygen, less air, less oxygen. So most likely that's why hindi tayo nakakahinga ng maayos whenever umaabot tayo at that certain point. Okay? So humidity describes how much water vapor is in the air. So I won't be able to explain this to you thoroughly yung by simply showing you a picture like yung kanina sa air temperature. So humidity, imagine nyo na lang, for example, itong boiling pot of water. So, yung nakikita nyo yung vapor, di ba? This is the vapor. So, basically, humidity describes how much water vapor is in the air. So, if you are going to go into a sauna, papasok kayo sa sauna, imagine this vapor present inside this room. Tapos, nandyan kayo. So, that is basically how you would describe yung evaporated water or water vapor is present in the air. And in this point, kasi nga sarado siya, since it is closed, you will obviously feel warm. Okay. Clouds, condensed form of evaporated water. And also precipitation, any form of water that falls from the sky such as rain, drizzle, snow, sleet, and hail. Okay, so i-explain ko lang yung clouds and precipitation at the same time. So if you notice, if you are familiar with the water cycle, mapapansin nyo because of the heat of the sun, nagkakaroon tayo ng evaporation where water, liquid turns into gas and it will somehow slowly rise into the air. Okay. And the moment kasi nga ang temperature kasi dito, the reason why it evaporated is because of the temperature present in this area, which is too warm. So the water evaporated, and at some point, kung mapapansin niyo, when it reaches this area, the temperature here is also different. So dito is warm or hot, and dito naman is basically cold. Okay. So, the moment this evaporated air, yung nag-evaporate, reaches a certain point where it is cold enough for the evaporated water to turn back into liquid, dyan na yan siya nag-form into little tiny particles of water, which later then forms into clouds. And if you notice the slight change of color sa clouds, no? From light to dark. So, napapansin nyo yan. So, it means that when the clouds are dark in color, it means that there's a lot of water, tiny water particles present, which doesn't allow the sunlight to pass through na talaga, no? So, yan yung ibig sabihin yan. So, from there, once it becomes heavy, nagkakaroon na tayo ngayon ng precipitation. So, uulan na yan siya. And if you notice that the change of color, actually paminsan nga nawawala kasi nga it is basically rain, no? Nawawala na siya. And somehow just becomes light in color kasi nga konti na lang yung yung tiny particles of water present doon sa taas. Okay? So, water disturbances. Water disturbance is a term used to describe a change in atmospheric conditions or weather patterns. Okay, an observance of weather pattern over decades is called a climate. So that's basically the difference between weather and climate. Weather basically refers to what we experience day by day. For example, it may be sunny today, but later in the afternoon, it may be rainy. It may be rainy today, tapos mamayang hapon, it will be sunny, windy. So it depends, no? It really depends. It can also be cloudy lang. So, this weather can change at some point anytime in a day. Compared to climate, it is the observance of these weather patterns over decades. So, I'm talking about 20, 30 years of time. So, dyan nag-change, dyan binibase ng mga scientists kung ano yung climate of that certain area is. Okay? So, storms are violent atmospheric disturbances which are characterized by low air temperature, low atmospheric pressure. So basically, these two are related. In which, if you notice in this illustration, sa high air temperature, kung mapapansin nyo yung wind flow is going downwards papunta sa ground. Pero kapag sa mainit, let's say in this area, this is a certain area, and this is another area. High temperature, and if in this case, if it is low temperature, yung hangin na to, dumadaloy papunta sa low pressure area, low air temperature, and somehow rises and spreads out. So, sa high temperature, yung movement of air is downwards. Sa low pressure naman, the movement of air is upwards. So, expect parang yan na nga yung evaporation and such. Condensation going to precipitation. Okay? Let me remove yan muna. Okay, low humidity. So basically, it means that the area is too dry, not much water to evaporate. So less water particles present in the air. Okay. So full cloud cover, masama ang panahon. Yun na nga because we're talking about storms. And the presence of precipitation and strong winds. So these are the basic characteristics of storms. Thunderstorm. So basically, a thunderstorm is a type of storm accompanied by lightning and thunder. Thunderstorms last for a few hours and cover only a small area. Thunderstorms usually occurs after a sunny weather. Wait lang, edit ko muna to. Tanggalin ko lang ang yes, okay. Thunderstorms usually occur after a sunny weather. So depende yan. Meron nga, there are actually times that it is actually sunny but you will experience thunderstorm. Not actually thunderstorm, pero you will be able to hear thunder at some point. Even though it's so cloudy outside. So tornado. So a violent rotating column of air that extends from a thunderstorm cloud to the ground. So ang formation kasi niyan usually starts if cloud formation, it usually starts from top forming to the bottom. So ganun din yan. Start from top all the way to the bottom. Pero paminsan kasi yung hangin, there are actually times that the wind tends to pull yung upwards nga, like yung low pressure nga kanina, di ba? So without the formation of clouds yet, paminsan kinukuha na yung dust kaagad ng tornado. That's why sometimes you'll be able to see tornadoes forming from the bottom. But it's not actually forming from the bottom. It's just that hindi present yung clouds that time. So hinihigop kaagad ng wind yung dirt from the ground all the way up. Then from there, nagiging visible na yung clouds. Okay? So depende kasi sa formation. It's either by cloud formation or the formation of yung dirt. Tornadoes only last for a short time but brings wrath to areas hit by it. Kasi kahit short time lang siya, it can last for a few minutes lang. Pero the destruction brought by the tornado, sobra, beyond repair. In other words, you basically need to construct talaga. Depende, of course, it would still depend on the strength of the tornado. So tropical cyclones. So these are tropical cyclones, yung typical typhoon na na-experience natin. Rotating organized system of clouds and thunderstorms that form over tropical waters. If a tropical cyclone forms over, so meron tayong ito yung tropical waters natin in this area. Parang let's say at this zone at some point. Okay. So there are certain names na ginagamit natin. Like for example sa Philippines, if you notice, in the Philippines we use the term typhoon. Sa America, you don't hear people saying there's a typhoon coming, but they say hurricane, 'di ba? They use the term hurricane if nagkakaroon sila ng tropical cyclone doon. It's because when tropical cyclone forms over the Atlantic Ocean, it is then called a hurricane if it forms over there. If the tropical cyclone forms over the Pacific Ocean, it is called a typhoon. And if it forms over the Indian Ocean, it is just called a cyclone. So, yan yung mga different terms na ginagamit natin in certain areas where these cyclones form, these tropical cyclones form. Okay? So, kung lang yun for your information. Okay? So, we have this certain concerned agency dito sa Philippines which is called PAG-ASA, which actually means the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration. Kindly be familiar with the term Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration, which comes out to the acronym as PAG-ASA. Okay? So, this is actually a revised public storm warning system by PAG-ASA. Kung anong ibig sabihin when they say that there is a typhoon signal number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, it is somehow useless. Hindi naman siya useless, no? Pero, syempre, we need to make use of a guideline, no? A guide for people to know kung anong klaseng typhoon ito that we are going to experience. If this area is experiencing signal number 1, signal number 2, signal number 3, 4, or 5. So, at least for you to have the idea. It says here that if an area experiences signal number 1, winds can vary from 30 to 60 kilometers per hour. So, if you don't have an idea, it is how fast bicycles can go. No, depende sa rider. So, actually 30 kilometers per hour for a bicycle is already fast. Depende kasi yan eh, how you ride. Pero if you are in races, they can reach up to 60 kilometers per hour or even more than that. Depende sa ground where they are. Okay? So when a certain area experiences signal number 1, ibig sabihin no damage to very little damage lang. Impacts of wind is very slow, mahina lang siya. And when it reaches signal number 2, it can vary from 61 to 120. This is usually how fast yung mga vehicles that you can see around you. They can go as fast as that. Some can go faster. Pero just to give you an idea that when you see motorcycles, jeepneys around you, so that's basically how fast they go, especially in an open area. So, ganun yung mga usual speed nila. From 61 to 120 kilometers per hour. So, light to moderate damage, depende. Of course, depending on the build of that area. And signal number 3, it can go from 121 to 170, and signal number 4 can go 171 to 220. So the damages can be heavy to very heavy, no? Moderate to heavy, heavy to very heavy damage. So, for example, lightweight lang yung mga bahay, such as made from wood, most likely they will be damaged. I'm also confident that even houses made from cement, their roofs will be torn off, most likely. It will be blown away by the strong wind, this very strong wind. Sasama na talaga yan, most likely. Okay, and signal number 5, very heavy to widespread damage. So, ibig sabihin, this speed can go as fast as a train. Mga train that you can find in Japan, in other places, where their trains can actually go so fast, very fast. It can go over 200 kilometers per hour. So, these are the basic, parang basis lang natin, what our agency, which is in this case is Pagasa, makes use of as basis to let people know what this certain region experiences. For example, in Zamboanga City, we experience parang signal number 1. In a different area, let's say in Davao, they experience signal number 2. So parang ganyan. Rather than saying that they experience 30 to 60 kilometers wind speed in that area. So rather than that, they just say signal number 1, signal number 2, and of course, what damage it can bring along the way. Okay, so that is basically it for today.